High in the Horn of Africa, where mountains rise like jagged crowns above the clouds, a kingdom once stood alone, unyielding, unbroken, and unafraid. Here, in a land carved by fire and time, armies marched through mist-covered valleys, kings ruled with a divine mandate, and a people shaped by stone and sky confronted the greatest empires the ancient world could assemble. This is the story of a civilization that refused to kneel, even when the world demanded it. This is Ethiopia, an empire forged in legend, faith, and defiance. What you're about to witness comes from the chronicles of Aksumite inscriptions, Greco-Roman geographers, Ethiopian royal chronicles, archaeological research from Oxford, Harvard, and Addis Ababa University, and fieldwork carried out across the highlands of Tigray and the Red Sea coast. These sources, combined with inscriptions such as the Ezana stone, accounts by Rufinus, and archaeological excavations at Yiha, Matara, and Adulis, allow us to reconstruct one of the most extraordinary civilizations in human history, the Ethiopian Empire. To understand how Ethiopia defied the powers of the ancient world, we must begin with the land itself. The Ethiopian highlands are unlike anything else in Africa. Ranging from 2,000 to 4,500 meters above sea level, they create a fortress of natural stone, plateaus, cliffs, obsidian fields, and deep valleys carved by centuries of rain. For ancient invaders, this was a nightmare. For Ethiopians, it was the cradle of identity. Here, communities developed in relative isolation, forming cultures and languages untouched by outside domination. The earliest monumental site, Yiha, dating to around the 8th century BCE, reveals a temple built with precision-cut stone blocks, evidence of early South Arabian influence, but clearly adapted into a uniquely African form. This blend of outside contact and internal strength became Ethiopia's secret weapon. By the 1st century CE, a new power had emerged, the Kingdom of Aksum. Its capital, nestled among the Tigrayan mountains, thrived as a hub for trade routes connecting sub-Saharan Africa, Arabia, the Nile Valley, and the Roman Mediterranean. Greek merchants wrote of Aksumite markets overflowing with ivory, gold, obsidian, turtle shells, and exotic animals. Roman geographers placed Aksum among the 4 great powers of the world, alongside Rome, Persia, and China. But Aksum was not just a trading empire, it was a military titan. The obelisks of Aksum. The towering stelae, some rising over 30 meters, were not merely tomb markers, they were symbols of cosmic authority. Each granite monolith represented the king's dominion over life, death, and the heavens. To carve and transport such monuments required thousands of workers and mastery of engineering far ahead of its time. Aksum was sending a message. We are not a kingdom. We are a world power. The Ethiopian army was shaped by geography. Soldiers climbed mountains from childhood, their lungs adapted to thin air, their legs to steep terrain.
They fought with long spears, short throwing javelins, curved sickle swords, and shields made of hippopotamus hide. Their tactics focused on mobility, using cliffs and valleys to ambush, encircle, and overwhelm enemies. Aksumite soldiers also used war elephants, a tradition inherited from Nubia and the Red Sea cultures. Combined with their mastery of terrain, the Aksumite forces were nearly unstoppable. Around the 4th century CE, Emperor Ezana ascended the throne. His inscriptions, written in Ge'ez, Greek, and Sabaic, tell us that he waged campaigns against the Noba, Kasu, and various tribes along the Red Sea. Ezana is best remembered for two things: expanding Aksum's borders farther than ever before, converting the empire to Christianity. Ezana's reign marked the dawn of a new Ethiopian identity, one rooted in Christian kingship. Unlike Rome, which collapsed under invading tribes, Ethiopia transformed its religious shift into a tool of unity. The church became a symbol of stability, connecting the empire to the Christian world while reinforcing internal cohesion. But the world beyond Ethiopia was changing, and soon its defiance would be tested. Across the Red Sea, the Himyarite kingdom in Yemen shifted between Judaism, polytheism, and Christianity. Its kings controlled the incense routes that connected Africa with the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean. Competition between Aksum and Himyar intensified as both sought influence over Arabia. The greatest crisis came under the Himyarite ruler Yusuf Asar Yathar, known in Ethiopian and Christian tradition as Du Nuwas. He launched violent campaigns against Christian communities in Najran. Word of these persecutions reached Emperor Caleb of Aksum, one of Ethiopia's most legendary rulers. Caleb made a decision unprecedented in African history. He would cross the Red Sea and intervene militarily in Arabia. With a fleet built at Adulis and manned by sailors from the Dulhak Islands and the African coast, Caleb launched a massive amphibious invasion around 525 CE. Chroniclers describe Ethiopian warriors descending on Yemen with disciplined formations, elephants, and infantry adapted to both mountain combat and open battlefields. Caleb defeated Du Nuwas, installed a protectorate, and ensured the safety of Christian communities throughout southern Arabia. This was not just a military triumph. It was a declaration to the ancient world: Ethiopia will not be intimidated by any empire, Arabian, Persian, or Roman. Ethiopia's growing influence in Arabia alarmed the Sasanian Empire of Persia, one of the most powerful states of the time. By the mid-5th century CE, the Persians launched an intervention targeting the Ethiopian presence in Yemen. They deployed ships across the Gulf and slowly pushed back Caleb's installed governors.
The Persians expected Ethiopia to collapse easily, but the Highland Empire endured, retreating to its mountains, consolidating its forces, and focusing on internal stability rather than endless foreign wars. This retreat was not weakness, it was strategic survival. While Persia and Byzantium exhausted each other in centuries of conflict, Ethiopia preserved its strength.
As the 7th century dawned and the Arabian Peninsula transformed under the rise of Islam, Ethiopia made a decision that echoed across faiths. When the first Muslims fled persecution in Mecca, they crossed the Red Sea and sought refuge in the Aksumite kingdom. The Ethiopian king, known in Islamic tradition as Najashi, Negus, listened to their plea. He offered them asylum, refusing to surrender them to Meccan envoys. This act of mercy built a bridge between Ethiopia and the emerging Islamic world, preserving peace between the two realms for centuries. Though Aksum gradually declined due to environmental shifts, over-farming, and the movement of trade routes, its legacy lived on in the Zagwe dynasty and later the Solomonic dynasty. The traditions of kingship, Christian identity, mountain fortresses, and cultural independence continued to shape medieval and early modern Ethiopia. Even when European empires carved up Africa in the 19th century, Ethiopia remained the sole African nation never colonized, carrying forward its ancient heritage of resistance. The roots of that defiance stretch back to Aksum, the empire that stood against Himyar, Persia, and every force that sought to dominate it. If you want more cinematic explorations of Africa's untold empires, forgotten wars, lost civilizations, and legendary leaders, make sure to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. Your support helps bring these hidden chapters of history to life, one story at a time. Let's continue uncovering the past, because the world's greatest histories are still waiting to be rediscovered.